How does a colocation data center plan for revenue growth? How does a colocation data center plan for revenue growth? That's a fantastic question. And I think it's one in which a lot of executives at colos are doing a lot of soul searching right now. Because going forward, there is going to be colocation data centers that are able to host clients that are running AI and high performance compute. And there's going to be colocation data centers that are not able to support those kind of power requirements and density requirements. So that's the first cut. The second cut, and this is something that I've seen probably for about at least 10 years already, is there's the single location colocation business, the multi-location colocation business, 2, 3, 4, maybe a handful of locations. And then there's the colocation business that scales nationally or potentially even globally. And each of those companies is able to attract a different kind of client. Because if you ever heard the expression decades ago that no one ever got fired for buying IBM, there's a very real kind of client that only wants to buy from the biggest of the big, that needs to buy from an Equinix or an NTT or a Digital Realty or a Switch or something like that. However, there's also a certain kind of client that doesn't want to do business with the big guys and instead wants to deal with a colocation operator where they have a personal relationship with the owner, a single or small multi-location kind of colocation operator. And then there's a lot of opportunity in the middle. So this would be like the tier points, the Flexentials, the QTSs, the data banks, the Vantages, and some of them are more wholesale and a little more hyperscale and less colocation. You get the idea here is that there's small, medium, and large when it comes to data center operators, regardless of whether you're focused on retail colocation or more wholesale or more hyperscale. And what it largely comes down to is you need to be very self-aware of where you can win, where your happiest, most profitable clients are coming from, what makes their business tick. Like, especially with a data center operator, for sure, there's going to be business model and industry considerations because the clients are going to make certain kinds of demands for compliance that you either have or you don't have. Along the same line, there's going to be clients that make demands for multi-location. So obviously, if you're a single location colocation company, those clients are also going to be off the target account list, are not going to be within your ideal client profile. So there's business model and industry considerations. There's how many locations you have. There's where you can actually successfully do business. For most colocation companies, there's your local clients. And then there's your clients that are outside the geographic area, but want to have a presence, need to have a presence for latency reasons or perhaps for regulatory reasons in your local market. So you can be a single location colocation operator in New England within the United States, or within the Pacific Northwest within the United States, or within Finland, or within South Africa, or within Malaysia, and you have your local market. Those are the people that you could potentially have into your facility on a regular basis for tours and educational events like breakfast seminars and lunch and learns and networking events. And that's a certain kind of playbook. And then there's a completely different kind of playbook with a client that's decided that they need to have a colocation presence in Salt Lake City or Helsinki or Manila or Pretoria or something like that. So there's two really completely different kinds of playbooks that your marketing, your sales would potentially execute on. And in a big enough scenario, I would actually recommend that you specialize your marketing hire, your marketing team, depending on whether they're marketing local or marketing outside of your geographic area, because it's completely different muscles. The person that's selling globally for your single location or multi-location data center and isn't going to see its prospects and clients face to face, that you need product marketing and the ability to conduct Zoom meetings and virtual tours and things like that. That's at an elite world-class level. Whereas someone that's selling locally more face-to-face can get away a little bit with being more rough around the edges in certain of those kinds of categories. So when it comes to your revenue growth, yeah, there's a bunch of different considerations. And obviously there's geographic considerations, whether they're local to you or outside your geographic market. There's size considerations, where you can win. What companies are big enough to have the budget willingness and ability to afford your colocation, but not so large that they're likely to demand a different kind of company than you can certainly fill the shoes for. And then there's a whole bunch of business model considerations for you as well. Like if you're determined to stay single location, you may need to have multiple sources, multiple revenue streams beyond colocation to make it worthwhile. Some colocation operators have morphed into marketing agencies. Some get into being managed service providers, or at least providing a lot of managed services, even if they're not calling themselves MSPs. Some are heavily involved in telecommunications, way just beyond normal meet me rooms and interconnect kind of stuff. So there's a lot of different ways to play this, but a lot of what dictates what you're going to do with revenue growth depends on the nature of your business model, depends on the nature of your capabilities, your capital that you have available. But at the end of the day, that's going to help you back into your ideal client profile and a target account list. That's going to help you back into who your buyer personas are, defining and researching your buyer personas. It's going to help you create an effective content and event strategy so that you're able to have a super important role in the first 83% of the buyer's journey when no one wants to talk to a salesperson anymore. That's a new thing, by the way. It used to be 10 years ago, maybe 60% of a buyer's journey was over. Now, well over 80% of a buyer's journey is over before sales contact. So these like things that you may have regarded as nice to haves in the past, like content and events, are now like you're completely invisible if you don't have those kinds of resource investments, or you're just left selling to the 5 to 10% of your market that still buys the same way they did in the 1990s. Like, in other words, people that are in the 10th, 11th, 12th inning of their career. But that for sure doesn't represent the sweet spot of your market. So we need to be very self-aware of what your most important buyer personas, biggest goals and challenges are that they're struggling with, and make sure that we show up early and often as the teachers and subject matter experts, trusted advisors, and consultants. Otherwise, we're going to be just driven into commodity status. And in a lot of ways, I see the unsophisticated colocation provider getting boxed into the same kind of commodity problem that the web hosts did 10 years ago and that managed service providers had to confront with 10 years ago. So this is your moment where you need to figure out, like, what is your company going to do to stay relevant over the next 5 or 10 years? If you keep doing the same thing you've been doing, and you're going to provide this kind of obsolete legacy colocation, and you're going to keep trying to market as if it's still 10 years ago, it's not going to work out well. So this is the time to really think about what you're going to do with growth. What is your company's product and service roadmap look like now? What are your capabilities going to look like 3, 6, 12 months down the road? What are the kinds of companies that need this kind of colocation, both locally and potentially nationally and globally? How do you build a target account list of who needs to find out that your company exists so you can educate and build trust with the right stakeholders, the right buyer personas in these companies? And how do you make sure that you stay with them throughout their full journey, throughout the full typical 28 touch points between complete stranger and purchase decision, from awareness to consideration and consideration to decision? Because 90% of the unsophisticated colocation operators that come to me for consulting are only showing up in the decision stage when the game is already 83% of the way done. It's kind of like, imagine you're the general manager of a professional sports team and you're just not competitive in the first 3 quarters, the first 80% of the game. So it's like, it's a runaway. Like you don't have players that are going to be effective in the first 3 quarters of the baseball game, in the first 3 quarters of the basketball game, the soccer game, the football game, or in a baseball game, you don't have players that are going to be effective until the 8th inning or something like that. So you're getting completely crushed on the field with other competitive options that are out there because someone else is stepping in to fill the void to help your ideal clients understand how to address their biggest goals, how to address their biggest challenges, get answers to their biggest questions, and staying with them in a way that they can dramatically impact how they evaluate and compare all the other options that are in front of them. So those are the most important considerations if you're trying to educate and build trust and grow your revenue for your colocation business. And of course, too, we focus so far primarily on net new revenue generation. For a lot of co-location providers, there's a big revenue growth opportunity with your existing clients as long as they're reasonably happy and you build a good relationship with them. I actually did a podcast interview a few weeks back with the president of a data center operator in the Southwest United States, I think about 150, 200 employees. And we talked about how sales and marketing has changed in recent years. And his answer on a lot of this stuff is that so many buyers are now signing up self-service. So the real sales process happens following sign up when you have a new client that's signing up and you're getting to know what their true needs are. You're able to have like a CTO level discussion because your sales team has gotten that upskilled, up level, and be able to have these quality conversations. And you're exploring what their other true needs are. So onboarding